All right, welcome, welcome. If you are new here, I'm so glad you came to join us, and I hope you find this to be a really good use of your time. If you've been here before, of course, welcome back. If you're watching on YouTube, go to the description, grab the handout for this session so you can follow along. And if this kind of legal technology talk is helpful, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. All right. So today we're going to be talking about something a lot of firms feel, but very few can actually prove with numbers. Your marketing is running, but is it working? A lot of firms are spending money every month posting on social media, paying for Google ads, trying to build referrals, improving SEO, doing intake all day long, and still they just don't know what is bringing in the actual clients. They know what feels busy, they know what gets calls, they know what gets attention, but do they actually know what produces signed business? Do you know what actually produces revenue? Do you know the exact ROI on every paid and unpaid campaign that you're doing? And we'll just go to ground zero on this. ROI is return on investment. That is going to be just how much you spend on marketing versus how much you generate. Do you know the return of your unpaid efforts as well? Do you know whether the thing that is flooding the phone lines? I just want to make sure that this isn't showing. Give me one sec. Yeah, this went wonky, and I don't know why. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it's being weird. All right. But do you know whether that thing is flooding the phone lines, is actually helping the firm, or just creating more work for the intake team with no benefit to the firm? Do you know which source is actually producing the best clients? And if you don't know, then how are you making marketing decisions? Because if we're being honest, a lot of firms are making those decisions based on feelings, assumptions, partial numbers, and whatever sounds convenient from the last meeting. So today I just want to slow down. We're all going to take a deep breath and we're going to tackle this one by one because I want to show you how Lawmatics can help you stop guessing and start knowing. If you don't have Lawmatics, you can set a lot of this up and still get some similar information. We're going to talk about how tracking should work from your website. We're going to talk about how to train your intake team to gather source information every single time. And we're going to talk about what numbers should be reviewed at a weekly marketing meeting every week, no exceptions. And then I also want to give you some realistic examples of what firms learn when they finally track this correctly. Because sometimes the truth is encouraging, sometimes it's painful, but you have to look at the real numbers because the truth is always better than guessing. So let's talk about the first point. I'm going to see if I can fix this. All right, there we go. That's a little better. That was driving me crazy. So if you are not tracking sources all the way to signed matters, you don't really know your marketing numbers. A lead is not a win. A phone call is not a win. A form submission is not a win. And a consultation is not the win. The real question is this: what actually turns into signed business and revenue? Because firms get fooled by volume all the time. It's one of the greatest gut feelings in a firm, but one of the biggest detriments to a firm as well. They say things like, oh, we got a ton of calls from that, or that campaign is doing great, or Google Ads is definitely working. Have you found yourself saying things like that? But I'm going to push back and say, based on what? Working at doing what? Making the phone ring, getting junk leads, creating consultations that never show, bringing in people who we're never going to hire. If your marketing gets you 50 leads but only one hire, that is a very different story than a source that gets you 10 leads and four hires. This is where a lot of firms are measuring too early in the funnel. They are measuring activity, not outcome. They're measuring noise, not value. What you really want inside Lawmatics is to connect the original lead source to what happens next. Pardon me. You want to know how many leads came in comparison to how many consultations were scheduled, how many consultations were actually held, how many hired, how much revenue came from that source, what you spent to get that result, and whether that source deserves more money, less money, or to be shut off entirely. And I do want to let you know that we are really close, and we've actually accomplished it, but to making available where you can now track your cancellations and no-shows very easily inside Lawmatics. But how much revenue came from the source, what you spent to get that result, whether that source deserves more money, less money, or to be shut off entirely. This flow should be asked of every campaign, paid or not, it doesn't matter. Though, yes, especially paid. But even unpaid, because that is taking human effort to create those unpaid campaigns. So if you only know the front end, you don't know the real story, or as Paul Harvey always said, the rest of the story. So an example, the Google Ads campaign that looked successful but was actually losing money. Let's say there's a family law firm spending $3,000 a month on Google Ads. Everybody in the office thinks it's working because the phones are ringing off the hook, and they had to hire another intake specialist to answer the extra calls. It looks like it's working. The intake person says, "We got a lot of calls from the Google Ads. I mean, a lot." And the owner says, "Great, keep it going. Let's bump up the spend." The agency sends a report saying clicks are up, traffic is up, conversions are up. Sounds like a dream marketing campaign. So keep throwing money at it, right? But when the firm tracks it properly in Lawmatics, here's what they find for the month. 117 Google Ads leads, 7 consultations scheduled, 5 consultations held. That means 2 cancellations or no-shows. That is wasted calendar space. 1 hired. That's 2,000 in revenue, 3,000 in spend, and a lot of time on with intake specialists fielding all this initial contact leads. Now the story changes. That campaign did not make them money that month. It lost them money, and it also cost a lot of staff time. The intake team was answering calls, following up, sorting through bad fits, and handling volume that felt impressive, but was not profitable. And there's a phrase I always like to say, and that's stop wasting time just to look busy. Be efficient. And that's the difference between busy and effective. All right. So let's talk about the quiet referral source that was outperforming everything else, because we're going to flip it. A small estate planning firm is focused on digital marketing, and they talk all the time about social media, SEO, and website traffic. But when they finally track correctly, they realize that one local financial advisor referred only 8 leads in the last 90 days. Not flashy, not high volume, but 6 of those 8 scheduled, 5 showed, 4 hired. And the revenue from that one referral relationship beat most of their paid marketing. And all you had to do was take that referral relationship out to lunch. Nobody had been paying attention because the number was so small, but the quality was excellent. I would even go so far to say it was superior. That is what good tracking does. It helps you stop chasing noise and start investing in what actually works. Google Business Profile, this is a good example that the Google Business Profile was doing more than they realized, because Another firm assumed most of their online leads were just website leads. So that label does not tell you very much. Once they start using a UTM code, it's a little tag that you put on the end of your URL for marketing campaigns that when people click, it'll go to a form, so it'll track the lead. But once they start using a UTM on their website button, on their Google business profile, they learned that a meaningful chunk of their traffic was coming directly from there. That mattered because those leads were local, organic, high intent, and often already looking at reviews before they clicked. Once they knew that, they started asking better questions. How do we improve our Google business profile? How do we get more reviews? How do we keep photos fresh? And how do we tighten the intake process for those leads? When you know the source, you can improve the source. When you don't know the source, you try to improve everything and money goes down the drain. I want to add that we don't consider a tracking campaign of website lead to be a real valid source. The real source is how they heard about your website or what took them to your site. That's going to give you the real data. If you're just saying website, that gives you very, very little information about how they really heard about you. And to be very clear, you should have tracking in place that if they do a Google search and click one of your pages, that is tracking that they clicked that page from a Google search and which page. Google Analytics can help with that. I am no specialist in Google Analytics by any means, though there are amazing people out there who are, and they can absolutely help you with that. If you're interested in getting a name for that, shoot me an email. It's just John, John, at ettingertech.com. Shoot me an email and I can tell you some people that are absolutely phenomenal with helping you set that up. So the next point, your website should be doing more of the tracking work for you. This is where firms often are working way too hard. They're trying to remember everything manually. They're asking staff to piece together lead sources from memory. They're leaving source fields blank, or they're using vague labels like the internet. And that's not enough. Your website should be helping do some, if not a lot, of the work and the heavy lifting for you. Now, at the end, I'm going to show you this live, the different components to make this happen. And then I'm going to pull up our website and walk through this simply, but very high level, so you see how it works. But if someone comes to your website through a tracked link with a UTM code, that information can be carried into Lawmatics so the source and campaign get attached automatically. You don't have to do a thing. UTM, for those that care, it stands for Urchin Tracking Module. It's a set of values added to the end of your URL that a form can read and append to either hidden fields or tied to a form submission in this case. It's basically sending it with the form so that the matter that it creates has the source and campaign attached to it automatically without you touching anything. That means less guessing, less manual cleanup, and less missing data. Less pressure on intake to somehow remember everything later or dig through tons of file notes to try and figure this out. If it is a Lawmatics form on your website, that's the easy path. The form submits directly into Lawmatics and carries the source and campaign information with it. If it's not a Lawmatics form, maybe it's a custom HTML form or another form builder like Contact Form 7, I believe it's on WordPress, that can still work. You just need Zapier in the middle, and that'll absolutely accomplish the same results. The form submits, Zapier grabs the fields if it's the middleman. Zapier submits them into a Lawmatics form. Now the source and campaign still get into Lawmatics, and the automation behind that Lawmatics form can still fire also because it was a Lawmatics form, even if you did it through Zapier. That is a big deal because now your tracking and your workflow are not fighting each other. Now they're working together. And that's really the whole point of all of this. Your team should not be manually doing work that your system could already be doing for them. Let a robot do what a robot can do and a human do what only a human can do. If someone clicks a tracked link, like an ad on your Facebook, lands on your website and fills out a form, Why should a human later have to guess where that came from? It's handling it, it's handing it to you on a silver platter. Let the system help. Let the website carry the data. Let Lawmatics store it. Let automation take some of the heavy lifting off the team. And I want to clarify that I'm definitely talking high level and there is some setup involved, but it's not difficult. I'm just giving you the results, not what's under the hood right now. So I'm going to give you a quick, easy win that you can do as soon as we end this open coaching session. And that's your Google business profile. It's a freebie almost every firm can do. The first thing I'm going to say is go to your Google business profile, which I'm going to show you ours in a minute, and make sure you verified it. It's kind of a pain. You have to make a little video for Google and stuff, but get it verified. That's a huge thing that you need to do. And then you're going to go into your profile and edit the website link that you put in so it includes a UTM. That's it. Usually I tell firms to use something like Medium as social media and Source and Campaign as Google My Business. If you look on the handout that's in the chat right now, I believe it's on the bottom, there is an example UTM code. It's the one I use. And you can see my domain. And then it starts with the question mark, and that's the UTM code. And you can change the different sources and campaigns however you want. But when someone clicks that website button from your Google business profile, which is the card that comes up on the right when you search somebody, when they click website, that UTM comes along for the ride. If they fill out a form after that, the tracking can carry through. Now you're not just saying website. Now you can actually identify that they came from the Google business profile. That matters because a lot of firms get meaningful traffic there and never separate it out. They lump everything together, and once everything is lumped together, everything gets blurry. Google Ads does this really well too, because Google Ads is another place where this matters a lot, and mostly because they can get really pricey. Many firms are spending money there, but they are not closing the loop properly. Marketing agencies who are doing Google Ads for you, if you're doing them yourself, in Google Ads, you can see how many clicks and all of that, but that's where it stops. They know the forms, they know the clicks, they know maybe how many leads came in, but they don't always know what happened after that. Did those people schedule a consultation? Did they show? Did they hire? What revenue came from that campaign? That's where Lawmatics steps in. That is where the numbers stop sounding impressive and start telling the truth. And sometimes the truth is surprising. Sometimes the campaign you thought was weak is actually producing excellent clients. Sometimes the one that everybody praises in meetings is burning money. And this is why you track. So point 3, intake still matters because not everything comes through a website form. Website tracking is powerful and it can take a lot of the heavy lifting off your team, but it does not replace a good intake. It supports good intake because not every lead comes in through a web form. Some call, some get referred, some saw you on social media, some searched you after hearing your name somewhere else. Some heard about you from a former client. Some answers are messy, so your intake team still has to ask questions every time. Whether you can help them or not, whether they're a good lead or not, whether they are going to hire or not. Because if you only gather source information on the people who seem promising, your reporting is skewed and it has really big blind spots. You need the full picture. You need to know what is bringing in strong leads, weak leads, mismatch leads, which is you don't provide that service, but they're calling you, ideal clients, and everything in between. So I always tell law firms to train intake around a natural conversation. You answer the phone. Good morning. This is so-and-so law firm. How can I help you? They start talking. They explain the issue. They tell you what's going on. And when they're done, this should be how it works every time. You say, great, let me open a quick file to get some information, and we can go from there. Then right in that spot, casually and conversationally, you say something that I call a stall tactic. That's like, oh, my internet is slow this morning. But while that's loading, how'd you hear about us? What I like about this is it does not feel robotic. It feels human. It feels casual. It feels like part of the conversation before you get to a point where you're either going to reject the lead or you're going to help them move forward. And you are getting the answer early before the call moves into service type analysis, scheduling, rejection, or referrals out. And that matters because once the conversation shifts, it gets very hard to circle back and ask naturally. Whoops. And then your team has to know how to handle the answer because Google is not a final answer. You know that show, Is That Your Final Answer? Online is not a final answer. The internet is not a final answer. That is where a lot of firms stop too early. You want to do a gentle follow-up. Was it a Google search? Did you click the business profile? Was it an ad? Were you referred by someone? Did you find us on Facebook? Did another attorney send you? Did a former client tell you about us? I sum that all up in one question is, oh, great, you heard about us online. How did you hear about us online? I just take that and turn it into a question, and they'll normally just give you the correct answer that is the source. The cleaner that intake data is, the cleaner your reporting becomes later. And if you have to choose between perfect and consistent, always choose consistent. Consistent data collected over time is far more useful than occasional perfect data. Every single time. Your culture should be, this is how our intake team handles initial calls. So quick example, the intake team was accidentally ruining the reporting. A personal injury firm thought their reporting was solid, but when they looked closer, they realized the intake team was choosing whatever source seemed close enough or just leaving it blank. One person would say, my sister found you online and texted your number. One intake person entered referral, another put Google, another entered website, and another put social media. Now, the same kind of lead is being categorized 4 different ways, and then the management wonders why the reports feel unreliable. The fix was not complicated. They tightened the source options. They trained staff on one follow-up question, which is great. How did you hear about our website? They made source collection part of every intake call. And within a few weeks, their reporting cleaned itself up. Sometimes the answer is not more tech. Sometimes it's better training to drive the tech. Usually it's a combination of the both. So this I just want to touch on pretty quickly. Weekly marketing meeting every week, no exceptions. Beth and I both feel very strongly about this, that there should be a weekly marketing meeting every week, not whenever somebody has time, not once a month if things are slow. Every week. If money is being spent, leads are coming in, intake is happening, and cases are being signed, then that deserves regular review. This meeting does not need to be long. It just needs to be disciplined. And it's not a vague brainstorming meeting. This is a review meeting, a numbers meeting, a truth meeting, a decisions meeting. If the client service person does the marketing, then if the client service person does the marketing, then meet with yourself, the intake specialist, and the attorney. If it's a marketing firm, sit in the meeting with them and have it once a week. The purpose is simple, and this is on your handout. What is working, what is not, what changed, and what needs attention this week? Numbers that you should always know overall every single week. The firm should know total new leads, total consultations scheduled, consultations held, no-shows, total hires, total rejected or non-hires. This is refused, conflicts, referred out, those types. Total sign matters by source and campaign, total projected or retained revenue by source, total marketing spend, overall cost per lead, overall cost per scheduled consultation, overall cost per hire. And I'm going to just say at this part, when you're preparing a meeting, go to Google if you don't know what some of these things mean. How do I get my overall cost per scheduled consultation? It's going to tell you the math. I didn't put it on here, but the math is very, very simple to do. You just have to have 2 things and you just divide them. It's not advanced. That is the baseline. Numbers you should know per source or per campaign. For every major source, especially any source you pay for, you should know leads, consultations scheduled, and just that same list: revenue, spend, cost per lead, cost per consult, cost per hire, and then your overall ROI, which is your return on investment. And if the firm is ready for one more layer, I would add quality notes too, because not all leads are equal. Um, So a simple weekly meeting agenda, it's very simple. Review the topic line or the top line numbers, review results by source and campaign, review surprises or changes, review intake accuracy, and missing source data. Decide on action items for the week. That's it. It's really simple. You can probably, if you're a smaller firm, you can have this meeting in 15 to 20 minutes going over these numbers and just making some quick decisions of where you want to keep putting money, taking money away, and how things are working. Disciplined. Be disciplined. And if you do that every week, the firm gets sharper because instead of saying, I think my marketing is okay, you can now confidently say, here's exactly what happened this week. That is leadership and that is operational maturity. That's owning your role. And that's how firms grow without wasting money or not wasting as much because many ads you spend will not work, but you're able to catch those numbers early instead of letting them ride. So this is not just a marketing issue, it's an operations issue. This goes deeper than marketing. Bad tracking creates bad decisions. Bad decisions spread. You keep spending on the wrong things. You underinvest in the right things. You praise the wrong campaigns. You blame the wrong staff. And you miss the real bottlenecks. You think the problem is lead generation when the real problem is conversion. You think the problem is ad spend when the real problem is intake. You think the problem is volume when the real problem is follow-up. Tracking matters because it helps you see where the actual issues are. Maybe the campaign is fine, but nobody's responding fast enough. Maybe consultation scheduling is fine, but nobody is clearly asking for the hire. Maybe your Google business profile deserves a lot more attention than you realized. Maybe your agency report sounds amazing, but your signed matters tell a different story. The numbers do not lie when the system is set up correctly. That can be uncomfortable at first, but it is also freeing because once you can see clearly, you can improve clearly. So some action items after this session. If I were giving firms a practical list coming out of today, it would be this. And I do want to tell you, I am going to give you a brief demo as soon as we're done with this part. But a practical list out of today, make sure your source tracking fields in Lawmatics are meaningful. Tighten intake training so every call includes the source question. Let your website do more of the tracking work. Use Lawmatics forms where it makes sense. If you use custom forms, connect them through Zapier. Use UTMs intentionally on Google Ads, social campaigns, and Google Business Profile. Build a weekly marketing meeting and treat it as non-negotiable. And stop judging marketing by noise and start judging it by outcomes and numbers. This is where clarity starts. So the key takeaways, if I had to boil this whole session down, it would be these few things. Marketing activity is not the same as marketing performance. More leads does not automatically mean better leads. If source is not tracked cleanly, your reporting is weak. Your website should help carry tracking data to Lawmatics whenever possible. Your intake team still has to ask the question every time. So have a training session with them, work with them, support them. And a weekly marketing review is non-negotiable. When firms finally track properly, the numbers usually surprise them. Sometimes in a painful way, sometimes in a very profitable way, but either way, they're finally leading with truth. So before I give you this quick demo, I want to tell you what really is the goal here. It's not more complexity. It's not more software for the sake of software. It's not more reports nobody trusts. The goal is clarity and to eliminate the chaos. So if you're hearing this and thinking, oh my gosh, we have pieces of this, but it's not clean. Our tracking is inconsistent. I do not trust our numbers enough to make decisions. This is exactly the kind of things that we help firms to fix. We help law firms build clear intake systems, cleaner source tracking, better reporting, and better automation so the truth is easier to see and the team is not working harder than they need to. And if this session made you realize there are some holes in how your firm is tracking marketing right now, I would encourage you schedule a free discovery meeting with us. You can scan the QR code. Sometimes one conversation is all it takes to see what is broken, what is fixable, and what the right next step should be. All right, so I am going to give a quick demo on this. All right, let me get back over to this screen. And for some reason, the Power BI isn't opening. And that's okay. So let's just share this. So on our website, I'm going to do it, the demo from how we have ours set up because I do this in practice. So on our website, we have lots of different forms on different things. So if you go to this one to see how marketing works, is how this is funneled is if somebody clicks our Facebook ad, it takes them here. The UTM populates up here, which is the question mark, source, things like that. It goes into this form. You can't see the fields, but it popped them in. So when this form is submitted, it's going, if this is not a direct Lawmatics form. If this was a direct Lawmatics form, as soon as they hit submit, it goes into Lawmatics, it does what it needs to do, fires the automations, and collected the sourcing campaign. I'll show you what the form looks like that's attached to this because I use Zapier as a middleman. I did some webhooks in there. But this is what the form looks like. Here's the form. If you're doing a custom HTML form or a form builder, that's fine. Zapier, you'll use a webhook to grab that. You just need a mirroring form in Lawmatics that Zapier can fill out with that information. It has to be the same type of form. But look on the bottom. Here it is. This one I typed it in because I was testing something, but it would populate these two fields for you. So when it submits, it grabbed those two information and the client was none the wiser and you got the information that you needed. That's how streamlined it is. And this can go so far as using lead magnets. Here, you can get this free goal calculator. And if you don't have it, I encourage you to go to our website and get it. But when this is filled out, it goes into Lawmatics, it tracks it, says where it came from, and then it also will fire out the tool to you for free and some helpful tools of how to use it. So you can use it as a lead magnet to deliver tools as well while collecting information. In Zapier, just so you can kind of see what it looks like, I'll show you one. Here's the marketing demo one. Let's just look at that. So this is if you're not using a Lawmatics form on your website, this is the connector. You create a webhook. Here's the webhook that goes on your form on your website. Don't worry about the honeypot. It's kind of an antiquated thing. I still do it just for a little extra bot deflection. But here's where now Zapier is talking to Lawmatics. And I have the mirrored form. And it is filling out that exact form with the information. And now, because it's a Lawmatics form here, it's going to trigger the automations and it's going to do everything it needs to do. I took it one step further and I have it just send me a bot message in Teams. So I just see when people are doing different things on my website. That's my librarian side of just seeing what's going on. This is the Google My Business profile. Here's this. And when I say add a UTM, it's right here. If you are not verified, you're going to have a section right here. There'll be a box that says you're not verified, please verify. Grab your cell phone, do it on your cell phone because you're going to need to use your camera and you need to be at the office when you're doing it. And then just follow the instructions. It takes about 5 minutes to do it. But if you click edit profile, you're going to see under contact, here's the website. So when people click website on your card that shows up, this is what it is. I added this UTM at the end. So it's just simply right here. You can do it right now. And when you put that in, then as soon as people click website, I'm going to click it. You can see it carried this over. And if it took it to a form-based page and they fill out a form, you've captured that information. So that's how it goes through and flows. Let me stop sharing, and we can absolutely help you set up things like that. So before we wrap
John,
this up, just yeah,
what did you want to show in the report? Because I do have the report open.
yeah, go ahead and share just the marketing. I had it open and then it just went to a white screen.
Oh. Mm.
So this is what you'll track. So you can see here is referrals and retail marketing. I'll just buzz through this really fast, but you can quickly see on the left, you can see the source, internet. You can see the campaign. One came from AVO, Bar Association, Elder Counts. You can see all those campaigns. Then you can see the number of contacts that came from it for initial contacts. That's your leads. How many scheduled a consult, how many retained, and the value of how much was retained. You can see this just at a glance. And then again, you can dissect this by date on the left with date ranges. So you can say, how was last month, last week during your meeting? You can hit referrals. This is just your referrals and retail marketing. This is stuff you're paying or unpaid that you're tracking. You can also, growth partner is what we call the coordinator that works with business professionals. You can, if you have multiple of those, you can track per person. It's not dropping down real quick. But if there is multiple here, you can say, I only want to see John's, things like that. So this is what you can track. And there was one more. Can you click on marketing trends on the left, Beth? It's down about right there. Here you can also see your referral percentage of leads versus retail percentage. This is where we preach about a 70-30 split. 70% should come from referrals, 30% from retail, which is your paid and unpaid marketing. And this will show you that split right here very quickly, very easily in your marketing meeting. You didn't even have to prepare. You just pulled it up and there it is. Real quick, Beth, I am going to give you the floor because I talked about a ton today of your thoughts.
And there's just a couple thoughts on this. One is the report also does give you the map, which you can really drill into and be able to see. As you see of this, if we're looking at social media, we're looking just at, people that have hired us for estate planning. Why is there nobody in this area? Is our social media not hitting the right areas? Is there a gap in there? This information can really be valuable to your marketing team, and it should be something that you're looking at when you're having your marketing meetings and being able to really visualize where your people are coming from in your area. Um, and the other thing that I wanted to point out was John was talking about the cost per lead and the cost per client. And Lawmatics does that information for you. The one thing that is not in the report at this point is your cost per lead and your spends. That is housed in Lawmatics, and Lawmatics does have that information. So when you're putting spends into Lawmatics, it will give you this cost per lead and cost per client. So when we're looking at like Facebook, these 47 clients cost us $8.30 a piece. And these 192 leads cost us $2 a piece per lead for what we spent on Facebook in this time range. The only thing that is difficult with this is that and this is in your marketing analytics, by the way. Up at the top here, you have a way to break this down and look at like just this month or just this year or whatever. And you can break it down to custom. It just makes it a little more difficult to be able to break this stuff down into like a custom date range that you want to look at. And you need to do custom if you want to look at like what was last year and all of that. But that information is in here in Lawmatics and it is calculating that for you. So you can pull out your cost per lead and your cost per client and have that information for your marketing meetings without needing to do the math. If you don't have Lawmatics, you need to do the math, but Lawmatics will give you that to you if you have it. Yeah.
And Beth, if you could estimate how much information is lost by not having these connections from your website to automatically gather these sourcing campaigns, how much information do you think is really lost in your experience working with law firms?
It really depends on the intake people and how granular you want to get. So if you have a really good intake and they're really asking those good questions, instead of saying somebody says, you ask them, how'd you hear about us? And they're like, oh, your website. Great. And they let it go with that and they stick them all under Google and they just whatever. Yeah, you're losing a lot. And so if you have a really good intake person, you're not going to lose as much. However, a good intake person, no matter how good they are is not going to be able to drive down into specific like Facebook campaigns and stuff like that. That is where you need the forms to come through that way. You need their contacts to come through that way. It doesn't matter how many questions you ask them, they are not going to be able to tell you which campaign on Facebook they saw you on. They saw you on Facebook, and to the common person out there using social media, that's all they know. They don't even, a lot of people don't even realize that's an ad that you pay for. So when they're looking at social media and you pop up on their social media, they just think it's you out there talking. So it's like no big deal. They don't comprehend that and they don't care. Like you, so to drill down into what your actual campaigns and what your cost and your revenue generated from those campaigns, you kind of have to have all the connections set up and making sure that they're working correctly. And if that's not set up, that's a lot of data lost because people can't tell you that. They don't know.
And I
Yeah.
did forget to show the endpoint of this. Can you go to settings, marketing sources? I did
Oh,
forget to
sure.
show you the endpoint that's actually talking to all of these things that we're talking about. So this is how
Mhm.
you set up the different marketing sources and campaigns. So let's look at, I thought I had put a very specific one in here. I guess not. So under Facebook, let's say that
Mhm.
you paid for a Facebook ad and you're calling that ad on Meta ads that you're running. You called it um, workshop ad for January 6th. You can put that in as a new campaign. Will you click new campaign, Beth? And it can be called, whatever your specific meta ad is. This is how you drill down to the specific ad, not just Facebook. And that's where your URL parameters match value right there is. That's where you put the campaign. So let's call this one workshop underscore. Yeah, just do that. You can grab that. It would just have probably underscores. That's your UTM. You have now linked
Got
that
it
to your
here.
form where your form will now drop it here and start giving you your ROIs. Um,
And when you spend money on that, then you just add in here where you spent money.
yep, exactly.
So,
And I tell
yeah.
people track it daily because you can get granular in your reporting. But even if you only pay a monthly bill to Meta or something like that, choose a date. Say on the first of every month, I'll put in, or let's say the last day of every month, I'll put in that month's spend. And you can just do it, do it like that. And that will gather the information you need. The last thing I do want to show you, and this is absolutely key, whether you are going to use Lawmatics forms or custom HTML forms, you only need this for Lawmatics forms, but I just say if you have Lawmatics, get this done now to set you up for the future. And that is click on tracking, Beth. And here, don't worry about the landing page there. That actually shouldn't be there. And Beth, you can delete that because that really shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
You just put your website there. You put your domain. And if you want to hit edit, Oh my gosh, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
It's all right. I just did this.
Okay.
There we go.
Go ahead and click edit, and you just put your domain. This is how you set it up. It's very simple. Now go ahead and hit cancel, and now hit the eyeball. This is the tracking snippet. This is the connection between a UTM code and this is telling it to put the information into the Lawmatics form and carry it to Lawmatics. This goes in the global head of your website. So even if you're not doing this yet, I encourage you while it's top of mind, get it done. Send it to your web developer. If you're doing it, go do it. Because then it's done and you don't have to wonder why your forms aren't working eventually when you go to do it, because this is the piece a lot of people miss. Custom HTML forms, you don't need this, but I still say put it there just to have it done in case you do put a Lawmatics form on. All right. Anything else, Beth, before I wrap up the
Nope.
recording?
Nope.
All right. So just a quick note for everybody watching on YouTube. We always stop the recording here and then open it up for live Q&A. This part is not recorded so people can ask real questions and talk through real situations. If you want to be a part of that conversation, we do this live every Friday at noon Eastern. It's free, and the link to join is in the description.